What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out two new T-Mobile REVVL devices, the new REVVL 6 and REVVL 6 Pro. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I'm interested in these phones. For one, the REVVL brand is one of the few options we have here in the US that isn't Apple, Samsung, or Motorola. We don't get a ton of other choices like the rest of the world. Also, these REVVL phones have been solid devices the past couple of years, especially for folks who are budget conscious, who want a prepaid device, or who maybe just want something simple and easy to use. REVVL phones definitely check all those boxes and then some. Now, there's usually a couple new REVVL phones released each year. This year there's these two, and like most smartphone companies tend to do nowadays, there's both a regular and a Pro. Unfortunately, there's actually not a whole lot that sets them apart, which is why I wanted to show them both in just one video. I'm of course going to go over everything you need to know about both these phones here, but first things first, let's just go ahead and unbox them so I can show you what does and does not come inside the package when you buy one. The unboxing experience with both devices is actually identical. The first thing you'll get inside the box is your packet of accessories, if you can even call it that. Inside you just have a big old stack of paperwork and instructions and legal info, along with a USB-A to USB-C cable for charging the phones. And that's it. T-Mobile seems to have gone the way of minimal packaging and no more included accessories, which is a bit disappointing. Underneath that, you'll find the phones themselves, which we'll check out in just a second. And I suppose the only other accessory is a SIM ejector tool there at the very bottom of the packages. So with all that junk out of the way, here are the new REVVL devices once again. And to keep things straight, the regular REVVL 6 is the smaller device with the blue finish on the left, and the REVVL 6 Pro is the slightly larger device in black on the right. So the REVVL brand, if you aren't familiar, is sort of T-Mobile's own hardware namesake. The phones themselves are usually manufactured by TCL, but they're sold primarily as budget and prepaid devices from both T-Mobile and their prepaid network Metro. Pricing is going to vary depending on if you're a new or existing customer, but prices start as low as, well, free for both phones. But the full retail price of the REVVL 6, if you want to buy it outright, is $169, and the REVVL 6 Pro comes in at $219. Size is obviously the first thing that sets them apart. The regular REVVL 6 is a 6.5-inch smartphone. That's the screen size corner to corner. The REVVL 6 Pro is 6.8 inches corner to corner, and most of that extra screen real estate on the Pro is height. The phones are about the same width, they're the same thickness in the hand, but the Pro is a smidge taller. They're both actually very tall devices, and in the hand you feel every bit of that height. These phones definitely require a bit of stretching and maneuvering when you use them to reach the sides and edges, and that's due in part to the larger screens, but also just those very thick bezels that border the screen. You've got noticeable black edges along the sides, a fairly large bottom chin, certainly not the best screen to body ratio to say the least, but even in 2022, this is sort of just the design for budget devices like these. Around back, both phones have the same design and build, just different color options. You only get the blue with the regular REVVL, and you only get black with the Pro. There's not much more to say about the materials. Plastic rear covers, metal-like frame. They're very flat phones, no curves, no contours, no tapers. Pretty much that ice cream sandwich-like build. One important distinction to mention though, the REVVL 6 Pro actually offers wireless charging. The regular REVVL 6 does not, but neither phone to my knowledge has any IP or water resistance rating or any other noticeable physical features. Taking a quick look around at everything else, on the left side both phones do offer expandable storage with the SIM card tray. The regular REVVL ships with 64 gigs of storage on board, the Pro has 128 gigs. On the right, identical volume buttons and a combination power button / fingerprint sensor. The placement, feel, and setup with this is all the same on both phones, and the speed, accuracy, and consistency of unlocking seems to be the same too. All in all, just happy to have an easy and straightforward fingerprint sensor on each one of these phones. Down at the bottom, the headphone jack remains, alongside the USB-C port for charging and single downward firing speaker, teardrop selfie camera up front below the earpiece, and around back, 3 cameras for the regular REVVL, 4 cameras for the Pro, and I'll go more in depth with the camera setups in just a bit. Jumping back to the displays, aside from the size difference, there's actually nothing else that sets the viewing experiences apart. Both the 6.5-inch screen on the regular REVVL and the 6.8-inch screen on the Pro are 720 resolution LCD panels with 60 Hz refresh rates. And to be completely honest, this is probably the thing I have the biggest issue with these phones. With the size, 720 resolution isn't great, and looking closely at either device, you're gonna pick out those pixels fairly easily. A 1080p screen, especially on the larger 6.8-inch Pro, would have been the best option. Furthermore, while the LCD panel itself isn't a huge deal, they look good, they're bright, they're colorful enough, not having any high refresh rate mode nowadays is a bit of a disappointment too. A lot of sub $300 devices at least offer 90 Hz for a faster, smoother feel. Altogether, with these REVVL devices, the display specs are no better than what we would have gotten years and years ago. And yes, I know these are budget prepaid phones. The regular REVVL I can look past, but for $219, the REVVL 6 Pro here falls fairly short in my opinion. The OnePlus Nord, Samsung's A13 5G, even Motorola's cheapest 5G phone this year all have better display specs for not a whole lot more money. So overall, in my opinion, the screens on these new REVVL smartphones are probably their weakest points. As far as the out loud listening experience, there's not a whole lot to say here. Both phones get just single downward firing speaker setups. They're loud, they sound fairly good for what they are, they're perfectly fine, albeit nothing special.
Watch the time pass us by, is this feeling lying? Could you pass the lighter? Yeah, I'm trying to keep my cool. Nicotine in my veins, flaming up the side.
When it comes to the internal specs and performance, this is another area where the regular REVVL 6 and REVVL 6 Pro are technically different, but probably not in the way that you think. Both phones are actually powered by the same processor, the MediaTek Dimensity 700 chipset. The difference is in RAM. You get 4 gigs on the regular REVVL, 6 gigs on the Pro, and while that is a difference, I don't know that it's significant enough to defend the Pro's Pro distinction. With the same processors inside each phone, the Geekbench scores are basically the same, and a side-by-side speed test to me shows no real discernible difference in performance. Yes, technically with more RAM, the REVVL 6 Pro may be able to handle more apps at once, or keep things current and loaded in the background, or potentially load more graphics-heavy stuff like games a little bit faster, and offer a slightly smoother in-game experience. But you have to keep in mind, the REVVL 6 Pro is $50 more expensive than the regular REVVL 6, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but at these prices, that's some 25% more. And the way I like to think of it is, are you getting a phone that's 25% better? When it comes to the processor and performance, certainly not. On the bright side, these phones do feel fairly responsive for what they are, and the Android experience, which unfortunately is still Android 12, is at least bare bones and stock, if you want to call it that. There's no preloaded T-Mobile garbage or other bloatware. You get a very simple, straightforward Android experience. And for folks who just need the basics, I think that's a big plus. I can't say for sure that software updates and support will be a priority for these REVVL devices over the next couple of years. I also can't say that the Pro gives you that much better performance, but if you're looking for a simple everyday Android device for the basic stuff, you at least get that here and maybe a little more with both of these phones. When it comes to the batteries and charging, I already mentioned the REVVL 6 Pro offers wireless charging, which is sort of interesting. The regular REVVL does not, and the Pro also has a bigger sized battery inside, 5,000 milliamps versus 4,500 on the regular. The difference though isn't major, especially when you consider the fact the Pro has a larger display, which in turn would require a bit more battery power. So while you might be able to squeeze out an extra little bit of daily use on the Pro, perhaps anywhere between half an hour to an hour at most, I don't consider that a huge difference or even a selling point. The major difference between the regular REVVL 6 and REVVL 6 Pro actually is in the camera department. So around back, the regular REVVL 6 offers 3 lenses, a 12 megapixel main lens, 2 megapixel macro, and 2 megapixel depth sensor. The Pro has 4 lenses, including a better 50 megapixel main lens, seemingly the same 2 megapixel macro and depth lenses, but also a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera. The selfie shooters are also different. The front camera on the regular REVVL is a 5 megapixel lens, the Pro gets a 16 megapixel shooter, and the hardware differences do unlock a few additional features for the Pro. The ultra wide lens, for example, is a great add-on and very useful. You can shoot in the full 50 megapixel mode on the Pro as well for some extra detail, but other than that, everything else, capability-wise, is going to be the same. You get up to 2K video recording on both night mode, slow-mo, pro controls, panorama. No portrait selfies, which is a weird omission, especially for the Pro with its better selfie camera. And with some quick sample shots here, yeah, you can tell a difference. Selfies overall do look better on the Pro. They're sharper for sure when you look closely. The rear lens camera on the Pro also captures more detail overall. The color balance to me is better. The pictures are brighter, the exposure and dynamic range overall is broader. So if pictures are particularly important to you, I can actually see how going with the Pro might make quite a bit of difference, but I think you would have to be fairly picky with the pictures to justify it. Overall, I think you can tell that there's really not a whole lot that separates this year's REVVL 6 devices. From the regular REVVL 6 to the REVVL 6 Pro, you get a slightly larger device, 2 gigs more RAM, wireless charging, and better cameras. But some of the important stuff, like a nicer display or faster, more capable processor, don't come with the Pro. Like I alluded to earlier, the price difference between the two phones assumes that the Pro is a 25% better device, theoretically. But I'm not so sure I see that. I also think that these devices, especially the Pro, could have offered more just in general, only because the standard, even for budget prepaid devices nowadays, is so high. But what do you guys think about the new REVVL devices? Are they phones you'd consider? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.